When tensions are high and combat is about to begin, the loose structure of roleplay and storytelling gives way to more rigid, turn-based gameplay. Initiative is how we keep track of whose turn it is. The other folks, Wrel here. Today I wanted to introduce you to how initiative works in Distal, a high fantasy, class-heavy, D20-based tabletop role-playing system in early development. You can join our Discord and get the alpha playtest core rules totally free at playthisrpg.com. In Dungeons & Dragons, your initiative is a product of a d20 roll plus your dexterity. In Pathfinder, it's your d20 roll plus perception or stealth or deception or diplomacy, depending on the circumstances. In both cases, you start with whoever got the highest result, work down the turn order until you reach whoever has the lowest, and then you run through the whole turn order again and start from the top. It's a straightforward but often volatile way to handle initiative. In Distal, we use a staggered initiative order that reduces volatility, allows a party to strategize a bit better, and makes for more natural storytelling. First, I'll break down how initiative works, and then we'll cover the benefits and the drawbacks of running initiative this way. Full disclosure, this is how initiative works currently in Distal, but we've already attempted a few ways prior to the alpha's release. There are 3 initiative variations based on how you're approaching combat: contested initiative, stealthy initiative, and first strike rules. Contested initiative is your standard style of initiative. The party enters a room, something seems amiss, GM calls for initiative to be rolled. Stealthy initiative takes place when the party is intentionally trying to get the jump on their enemies by being stealthy, as the name would suggest. And first strike rules just mean that when you have a character who abruptly makes an attack, you just forego the initiative roll altogether, give that character the first turn. This sort of thing seems to happen a fair amount in the games that I play. One of your party members and an NPC will be having a tense conversation. The NPC says something that pushes the character just a little bit too far. Then the player says something like, "I punch him in the face." And the GM is like, "Well, here we go." That's when first strike comes into play. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's circle back around to the contested initiative. The party pushes their way through a decrepit hallway, burning away the webbing as they go. Eventually, they reach a grand, ornate chamber. Above the centuries-old fineries and central war table, skeletal remains hang suspended from strands of spider silk. And above that, the matriarch of this place, a gargantuan, skittering monstrosity. Roll for initiative. This is your contested initiative. A couple of things happen here. First off, everyone in the party is going to roll their class willpower die. This happens every single time combat begins, right at the top, and willpower basically acts as a temporary layer of health and can increase your chance to hit with attacks in dire circumstances. Secondly, the party chooses one person to roll initiative for the entire party, and then the GM is going to roll against them. The party member rolls 1d20, adds either their wisdom or their dexterity to the roll, though some class features can push this roll even further. The strategist's on watch feature allows them to always add a perception bonus to the roll as well, and not just when they're the ones doing the roll. For the GM, they also roll 1d20 and then they add the highest challenge bonus available to any of the monsters participating in the combat. A Skitterling Matriarch's challenge bonus, for example, is a +3, so that's what they would add to their roll. Let's say in this case that the party goes first. Let's also say, for the sake of demonstration, that there are an even number of combatants on the field. The party chooses one character to take their turn. Then the GM chooses one of their creatures to take their turn. This goes back and forth until everyone in the combat has taken a turn. Then the order solidifies. And then you just return to the top, work your way down again until the combat is over. If you have more party members or more creatures than you have an opposing team, it's all good. You just go back and forth until one of the teams runs out, and then you complete the turns for anyone who hasn't gone yet before cycling back up to the top of the order. But let's rewind a little bit to the point before this fight began, and we'll say that the party is found an abandoned route, blessedly free from any spidery entanglements. They creep down along the long-forgotten route, which ends secretly behind a long-extinguished fireplace in that same grand chamber. There they behold the massive mother of spiders feasting on fresh cadavers, likely the residents of local villages who begged for your aid in the first place. Now is the perfect time to strike without giving yourself away. Or in other words, stealthy initiative. In this case, every party member rolls 1d20 plus their dexterity or wisdom, same as before, but they also add their stealth bonus to the roll, unless they're wearing armor with the noisy property. This is also contested against the GM's roll, same as last time, 1d20 plus the highest monster challenge bonus. With stealthy initiative, any party member that got higher than the GM's result is going to take one turn for free that lives outside of the normal turn order. This is referred to as a surprise round. We'll say that 2 of the party members roll higher than the GM, and then they get to take their turns. Both of these characters would be in the surprise round, and the participating players can decide who goes first. Once everyone in the surprise round takes their turn, then you just enter contested initiative as normal, except that the GM's team automatically goes first. So GM goes, party goes, GM goes, party goes, etc., etc. And that's it. Initiative in Distal. This is very similar to Popcorn Initiative, except it's not up to every character every turn to decide who goes for the entirety of combat, since the turn order becomes set after all the combatants have gone at least once. There are some benefits and drawbacks of using this method. Some we've caught in testing, some we've alluded to in the video, and some you may have thought about just as we're talking through it. Let's start with the benefits first. The major upside of having a staggered initiative order is that when used carefully, you don't end up in a situation where characters are steamrolling your boss in the first round just because the party rolled high and the boss rolled low. This works the other way around too, where bad rolls on behalf of the party could mean that a couple party members get down in the first round and you very quickly enter TPK territory. It's not fun for people rolling death saves for the rest of combat, not fun for characters who feel pigeonholed into trying to babysit their dying teammates, and not fun for the GM, who might feel like they need to pull their punches, which can sometimes be super awkward and obvious. Another major upside is just being able to choose who goes. It becomes a collaborative effort between the party members, and the GM can choose creatures that make sense thematically. The more a party plays together, the more they'll be able to develop cool strategies that piggyback off of one another, because the turn order will be reliable each time. And you'll never end up in a situation where a character who doesn't want to go first is forced to go first because they just had a higher roll. Likewise, the GM can make sure that the goblins you just bumped into are actually the first ones to respond to an attack, instead of the one dude all the way across the room who needs to waste their turn dashing towards you. The last upside that I'll talk about is probably a bit debatable. In my opinion, this system gives a GM less work on the front end. When they say roll for initiative, a GM just has to make one roll, choose one creature to go first, and then the party does their own thing. However, you do also need to build a turn order as you go, instead of laying it out right at the beginning. So depending on how you're used to tracking initiative, you may not feel like this is a benefit. That said, let's talk about some important downsides. The first one you might not expect is just that it's fun to say roll for initiative and have everyone get to roll for it. In fact, we used to run it this way alongside the staggered initiative before moving to the current version. I do also think though that this might be a packaging issue. If everyone gets familiar with talking to each other about who should roll, who should go, and everyone remembers to roll their willpower die, then at least everyone gets something to roll right before the festivities kick off. The second downside is that you might have a conflict at the table when it comes to deciding who goes first. If 2 players want to go, the GM needs to step in and say, hey, you 2 go ahead, roll off to determine who goes first between you. I actually mentioned as much in the rules to help arbitrate this sort of a disagreement. And that's about it. Initiative in Distal. And remember, this is alpha, and I can already see some rough edges that could be smoothed over, but I'd be interested in your take on it in the comments section down below. Are there other ways to run initiative that you find super enjoyable and ideally solve the same problems? Just let me know. If this video has been interesting, helpful, or entertaining, please feel free to like, subscribe, tell your friends about the channel, and if you would like to play Distal or follow our development, go ahead, check out the Discord at playthisrpg.com. You can download the alpha test package for free and share your feedback on this brand new tabletop role-playing system. Thanks very much, folks. Wrel signing off.